Can I close it? Still on.
Yeah, and Tim's gonna help me with the music.
Yep. I'm good at tunes.
Okay.
You ready?
Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
And the people in the back hear me? Hello.
We are gonna go ahead and get started, so if everybody can get a seat. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to start off with having some speakers come up. We are going to ask if you are speaking to limit your time to about 5 minutes, just because there's a lot of love in the room. So if you can follow that. Rhonda, if you want to start.
Okay, can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this is a very special day, and I want to thank you for coming. Thank you all along for all the support. Thank you. It hasn't gone unnoticed. I tell you in truth, that's why I'm here today, because it's your prayers, your thoughts, knowing how you helped Nicole and Aiden, how you remembered us. It's just phenomenal. And I continue to go on that. So if people continue praying, that's where it's at, because that's where our strength is, without a doubt. So I just want to recap a little bit of Jon's younger years, because I know a lot of you from Arizona know his life here, but you really don't know the North Dakota life. So starting off, he was born July 9th, 1980, and he didn't come into this world in an easy way. He was born by a C-section. He was early, so they had to transfer him. I can't hold it because I'll be shaking. Okay, my son's gonna help me. That's good. Okay, so anyway, he spent 9 days in neonatal ICU. And one of the humorous parts of this is the nurses said that they had this oxygen put on his face. And even as little as he was, Jon, being his strong-willed person, was trying to get that oxygen off of his face. And I think that's pretty phenomenal for as young as he was. But anyway, he was born in Warren, Minnesota at 12:02 p.m. And he weighed 7 pounds, 2 ounces, being early. So he was a big boy, 20 inches long. In his toddler years, he was a little on the chunky side. But once he learned to walk, at 12 months, 2 weeks, then he kind of wore that all off and he was slim from then on. He and his brother Tim were good buds all along, and they were only 13 months and 2 weeks apart. In fact, Tim used to try to steal Jon's baby bottle when Jon was still having one. I'd look for it and I'd think, where did that go? And here was Tim behind me. You could see the clothes. Wow. So there were 2 babies at the same time. And they had a lot of family time. They had both grandparents, my mom and dad, and they had Alan's mom and dad in their lives. They had their aunts and their uncles. So they were very enriched by all the family. And when Jon was just a few months old and he would wake up in his crib, every morning was really, I don't know, it was phenomenally how happy he was. He'd get up and he sounded like he was from the South. He'd say, "It's a new day." That's how he pronounced day. And so I just marvel at him all along. There was something very special with him all along. And then the other thing he loved, because his grandpa Cal, Alan's dad, was a farmer, he loved these little matchbox tractors and all the little accessories that went with them. So when he's like 2, he'd say, John, what does the tractor say? And again, he's like he's from the south, he'd say real slow, the tractor says, put, put, up. And that's just how he said it. So we'd get a kick out of it with that. And I remember the first day of kindergarten, he didn't want me to leave him. I turned around and looked, he's raced in the doorway like Spider-Man. The teacher had her arms around his waist, and he's going, Mom, Mom. I looked back and she said, Rhonda, just keep going. That was hard. As a mother, that's a hard thing to do, but I did. But he never really was crazy about school. He went, but he didn't really love it. He'd try everything, like I had a headache today, Mom, I have a sore throat, I think I have an earache. I had many birthday parties for them, and because they were so close, most of them were together parties with their friends, so they did a lot of fun things together. And Alan and I were always active on the weekends, taking them outdoors. We loved pacing, man. When we did pacing, we hiked, we took them crawdad fishing, we just did. We had a lot of fun with them swimming. They got involved in Taekwondo, so they had very fulfilling growing up lives. And John was in a lot of sports. I was really surprised going through photos. He was in baseball. He was a Piston in basketball, Pepsi Piston. He was in Taekwondo. He was in wrestling. He was in the Pop Warner football. He went to Flagstaff many times to games. And then, aside from those sports, of course, everyone knows his love for the wheel things. He started out with the 3-wheeler, which on the front of it, he had a plaque that said 316, which I think that's awesome, John 316. So that makes me feel good. And John and Nicole met when they were like middle schoolers, pretty inseparable from that point on. Very special couple, all the way. They got married in Heber in the park. It was a beautiful wedding, lots of people. And Aiden was the ring bearer, and my son Tim married them, so that was an honor for me too. And when Aiden came along, what a miracle to the whole family. Very much like his dad, and I told him, you're very special, Aiden. I'm waiting to see you as you grow up, all the things that God's going to bring you into, the good things. So I couldn't tell you any different. And of course, he loved to take Aiden with him everywhere he went. John did, Nicole too. Very good parents with him. Of course, he went from the 3-wheelers to the motocross bikes. I used to try to go to get through the races, and his biggest thing was, Mom, how much daylight did you see when I went off that hill last night? You know, it had to be like a really fast ride for him all the time. He had to go hardcore. And let's see. Yes, and I want to acknowledge Nicole and Aiden for being such troopers. We were there the last days, and they were not easy ones. But I'm thankful I have the faith that I have, folks, because, again, that's what carries you through. And yes, I miss John, but you know what? He's looking down at us thinking, man, you guys are still having a struggle. I'm in a much better place, and one day I believe we will see him again. So I just want to comment on the jobs that he held along the way. That was probably the last thing I'm going to bring up here. But when we first got the Payson, we didn't know anybody. So I went to the Payson Roundup and I took on a newspaper throwing job. So both the boys would help me deliver newspapers. So we learned the neighborhoods, we learned the people, and that was the first job. Then the next job, when he's 13, he come home and goes, Mom, I got a job. I said, you do? What are you doing? Well, I'm going to work at that little Oriental restaurant called The Walk, he said. I said, what are you going to do there? I'm a bus tables 2 nights a week after school. So that was it. But I was criticized by many parents. How come you're making your kids work? I never made John work. That was in him. He was going to work, he was going to make money, even to the end of his life, to support his family and have what he had today. And then the next place they worked was a Swiss Village restaurant. Both boys worked there. They were dishwashers and they were truck cooks. And then he went from that to Payson Ice and Jewel. He was there many years. And then he got into the construction thing with Hubbardston Construction. That was an interesting story. My mom said, Mom, I'm going to work for Hubbardston Construction. I said, what are you going to do? Well, he says, I'm going to pick up all the scrap lumber. I said, okay. So he did that for a while. Pretty soon he was watching the framers. And they said to him, "You want to learn this, John?" He said, "Yeah." So that was how he learned framing. Then from that, he watched the foreman or the boss read blueprints. So one day I was eating in a restaurant in Mason, and the foreman came over to me and said, "Aren't you John's mom?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Why don't you know he's really gifted? He wanted to learn blueprints. I showed him those. He said it was amazing. He just got right on. So he just continued to that to really where he ended up at the end. The construction jobs were really good for him. And he worked in the Valley for Sun State. He worked for D.R. Horton, and lastly for Chase Company. And Chase deserves a very big round of applause because they followed through with this family. I'm telling you, when John got to where he had his weekdays, they gave him a computer at home and said, "Work as much as you can." I mean, they were just phenomenal, beyond belief. And so I just want us to all remember all the happy times at John, because the one last thing I am going to say is he said to Nicole and I, one of his last days, he says, "Well, when I die, I want you to throw a big party." And Nicole and I said, "What? We're not going to throw a party when you die." "Well, no," he says, "I don't mean like that." He said, "I want you to have a party and remember all the happy times that I had with you guys." So that's what gives me the strength today to stand up here and say the things I'm saying. Very proud of him. Walked that path. I worked 7 years in hospice in the VA, and I've never seen any man walk as strong as John gets through that stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Thank you again for coming.
Andre?
Hi guys, how's it going? I'm Andre Karoom. I used to work with John. Worked with him for 7 years in total. Anyways, I just want to start by saying thank you to Nicole and the Shortridge family for letting me into your lives. John is an easy person to talk about, but this is not easy to share for someone we love so much. I'll do my best to try to share that with you guys. I worked with John for 7 years. I only started to get to know him the last 3 years, really. I had the opportunity to work with John on a project in Chandler. My first memories of John was, he was a rugged, tough individual. Our working condition at Chandler was close quarters, so John and Terry Erickson and myself, we all kind of shared the same side of the trailer. We ended up getting to know each other fairly well, better than teammates. First week working with John, I immediately noticed how thoughtful and caring and passionate he was about his family, dirt bike riding, and work. John loved his family more than anything. Nicole and Nathan were his life, along with his dog, Chocolate. He loved every minute of it. Breaking through John wasn't easy. We were both a little standoffish. We didn't really know who we were, what kind of character each of us were. So I remember the first couple of weeks I was talking to him, I asked him why he carried 2 cell phones on him. He said, "One's for work and the other one's personal, but you're not getting that number." I was like, "Okay, I get it, no worries." It caught me a little off guard, but I appreciate that. I'm kind of the same way. We became close friends the next few weeks. And he mentioned, why don't I call him on his personal number sometime? I was very touched by that. We all remember how proud Shorty was of his beard. So one of the memories I have, Terry, John, and myself used to grab lunch together a lot. So he had this jar of like, I don't know, coconut oil or beard balm or beard wax, right? You guys remember that? So he takes a glob of it and wipes it on his beard. And I just thought that was the grossest thing ever. It was just right in front of me. But looking back on it, it's memories like that almost. I'm going to miss early morning phone calls with John. His one-line quotes, if you guys remember those. It's so hard to remember any one of them because they were so random. I want to thank everybody who helped out and contributed to John's family. Your generosity was appreciated. I was I didn't really know how to close this thing out, and I just want to say a couple things that I'll always miss Jon for. I think we can all agree we lost BMF, I'm going to abbreviate it. Jon wore his heart in his sleeve. He lived every day to the fullest. Jon inspired many people through his kind words, his open heart, and his passion for life. I'm going to miss our daily conversations. His humor is unmatched. That's all I got.
Matt Westerlin.
Thank you. My name is Matt Westmoreland. I had the pleasure of working with Jon Shortridge for a great many years, and it's truly an honor to be here today and speak a little bit about him. So as we come together here today to honor and celebrate the life of Jon Shortridge, my hope is the kind remembrances of Jon give all of you good people peace and solace in the loss of this good man, and leave each of you with only the cherished memories of the times we were blessed to have shared with him. I had the great honor of working with Jon for many years through challenging and demanding circumstances, and learned much during those times about the man we celebrate today. Many of us here today that worked with Jon feel like we know this family like our own, because you were always on his mind, and not a day went by that he did not speak of you. First and foremost, what I know of Jon was his infinite love and admiration for his son, Aiden. I cannot count the hours of video footage I've watched of Aiden on his bike, racing other young men a few years older, Jon's eyes sparkling and his face beaming pride as he recounted how Aiden outmatched and outclassed his competitors. As a father, I can say with all certainty that the sun rose and set on Aiden in his father's eyes, and that he loved you, Aiden, from your very first breath to his very last with all of his heart. I can also say with absolute certainty, he had unquestioned commitment and devotion to his wife, Nicole. As so many times he told me that you were the love of his life, and none of us ever questioned it. In a world that can so often seem dark, he was definitely a bright light who approached each day with humor, wit, perseverance. His courageousness was only matched by the humble kindness he showed to those around him. Men such as Jon are rare, and truly, he was the best amongst us. And as such, our hearts break for the void left behind by his absence. And while our time with him was far too short, let us not be bitter by the loss and the grief we feel. Instead, I hope that our hearts can be filled with the blessing that it was to know Jon and have had the memories each of us have with him. While no words can assuage this incredible loss, in time the sadness we feel will be replaced with fond remembrances of this incredible man. I learned much from Jon, for which I am very grateful. He reminded me of the importance, the absolute importance of family, to find a way to smile through pain, to turn anger and frustration into laughter and joy. Jon also taught me much humility. He was a quiet intellectual. He never boasted or bragged about the depth of his knowledge on so many topics. It is rare in the construction industry to come across a man who can discuss everything from Arizona history, geology, paleontology. He knew every trail, canyon, and mountain range in this great state. But Jon was such a man. The things Jon knew, he knew absolutely, and with such great depth and detail, it was astounding. He was a rare individual in his exceptionalism. When men work together in close quarters for 20 plus hours a week for years on end, a certain camaraderie grows amongst us, and names get quickly replaced with nicknames. I called Jon Dr. Dirtbike because the man was brilliant at all things motorcycle related. I also called him Spartacus. Because the beard, he looked very much the part. And well, he called me Testicles. I will leave the explanation of that to your imagination. By far the most creative and funny nickname I've ever been given, and one that I wore with pride whenever we were together. Jon had a gift for making challenging times fun, and when Jon was on your team, you know you had a competent, capable, committed brother by your side, win or lose, thick or thin. You have my deepest gratitude for the opportunity to speak a few words about my friend and brother today. When my final day comes, I hope that I have lived a life with half as much character and goodness as Jon, and I aspire to go to where the lions go, not where the lambs go, where the wolves are and not the sheep, so I can see my friend Jon Shortridge and tell him how his family is strong and well, and what a great man his son has grown into. Again, you have my thanks and love for this honor.
Tracy?
Good to see you all. What a great turnout. Matt and I have a bet to see which one's going to break down worse, and he told me he's going to win. I don't think so. It's odd when something doesn't turn out the way you think it ought to. That was Jon when I first was exposed to him online on a local mailing platform, which I hate to admit I was ever on a platform. Online, he had a way to both irritate those he judged as too full or too sure of themselves, and also to entertain and pull in many others. I would go online just to see what the hell Jon had posted on the forums now. One of the first times we rode together was in the Bradshaw Mountains on a lane trail. It was apparent that this ride may have been more technical than Jon's skill level at the time when he finished the ride. I think this may have been the ride where he was unanimously voted the most interesting rider to follow. He didn't like how he rode that day, and he focused on getting better. The word is that to improve faster, ride with a better rider than yourself. And he improved quite a bit, and I'm sure that's from him due to him riding a lot with Hayden. Good stuff. Jon was a fellow CR500 enthusiast, but he liked all bikes. He raced in the AMRA series for a while and was also the mini bike steward for a few years. The mini riders had a fierce advocate in Jon, and I had more than one conversation with him about the kids' race and his views on what makes for a good course. He was also rough on a club if they didn't put on a mini race in conjunction with their big bike race. We did a ride in the Abajo Mountains in Utah a few years back with some friends here in the valley and with a couple of the local guys there. After a long rugged downhill trail, we took a break by a stream for a bit. When we were ready to ride, Jon fired up his bike. It was partly stuck in some mud, so he revved the bike and spun the wheel and finally got it unstuck. Then he looked back and saw that one of the local guys covered it head to toe from mud from Jon's effort to get his bike free. We laughed at the scene and used to recall it every so often. Jon would get that mischievous look on his face and just grin. Jon also had unique trail food. On a longer ride, you know what I'm talking about. Snacks were a necessity. Jon frequently brought along smoked chicken gizzards and would freely offer them to everybody. And if he sensed you weren't all about the gizzards, then he was going to mess with you with them. Jon loved Nicole and Aiden fiercely, and he and Aiden often had matching colorful hairdos. I had a picture that I can't find of Jon checking his bike tire pressure, looking up, sporting a bright pink mohawk, and he had that same smile. Jon also liked fun movies, Blazing Saddles being one of his favorites. The conversation with him often had lines from the movie woven in. And he also liked the Letterkenny TV show, and at times we threw lines back from that show back and forth during a conversation. He hosted a ride in Payson last year with a good turnout of friends, family, and club guys. I was chatting with him before the ride about whatever inconsequential topic was at hand. Then he stopped and looked at me and said, "Someone's going to need to show Aiden the CR500 starting drill when he's ready to ride it." Just damn. He wanted his family taken care of, down to the minor detail of how to start his 500. I had the privilege of riding with A over weekend at the end of February this year. I know John would be proud of this young man, the way he carries himself. He also would be proud, as he always was, of Aiden's riding skills. It is with pride and honor that I get to speak about John before you. Proud to have called him friend, and honored that Nicole asked me to speak. I miss him a lot. Thank you.
John Barry. Oh, you can read. Good job.
I swear. Thank you.
So, I'm John Barry. She said, I had the pleasure of meeting Shorty on a chase job. Matt, was it you that was responsible for bringing that gentleman into my life? Thank you so much. I can't even begin to say how it's affected me, and it's going to continue to. John was on me, he was on my boys, and it's changed my life infinitely. If I was to summarize how I would say my interpretation of John's life was lived, I would say it was with extreme badassery, which isn't my word. That's his word. A lot of shit says that I still walk around with. Never mind, I was gonna make that joke and that's all the kids out there. In any case, he came into my life as my assistant. How stupid the titles were in hindsight. About the only thing I might have at the time been better than Jon Shortridge, that was probably construction. And I'll bet you, I don't know, I didn't work with him for like last 8 or 9 years. He's probably better than I am at that as well. All I can tell you is, without his knowledge, maybe even to his last day, he became my favorite teacher. I didn't really understand how the hell he made everything just look so damn easy. I mean, following him is not easy, but he makes it look easy, like some kind of sideways artwork at the end of their bike. I've been passed on a purple KDX 220 when I thought I was really cool. Basically, I think John was just a master of systems, maybe an undiagnosed damn genius. And if you were lucky enough to spend enough time with him and just watch him, it's not even about what he says, just watch what the man does, after the integrity and all these other things that you saw in his, in the program. But I think the only thing that would let somebody sneak away from me in life to be the badass that he is just a badass life. You guys sort of like met in high school, did all the crazy party things and progressed into adulthood, and you never restricted each other from becoming who the hell you wanted to be. I didn't see you bugging us about our rides. I didn't see him bugging you about those weird damn dead bugs that are on the walls. I mean, to each their own, but you know what? You guys flourished with each other. You're just a badass couple. So when I look at his life, yeah, I was short. My kids aren't even here. And they love him. Okay? They love him. They can't even be here because I didn't have a great badass life and I wasn't a great badass husband. Not afraid to admit it, because I'm still in the fight because I'm reading. So while John had a Campbell's soup life, I mean, he kicked the shit out of it. He didn't half-ass anything. What did he change in my life? I don't have enough things to say, but let me say it starts when I wake up in the morning. I don't even drink coffee the same way. I use an AeroPress now. But where's my pot and my shit? I don't have time. Crack. Bullshit, man. You gotta really embrace the coffee. You would squeeze every grind of water, everything out of every tube of everything. You didn't put anything on the table. Didn't make 40. You know what? I bet you at some point, he didn't even think he was going to end either. Right? I took him like that. He's a crazy bastard. And he was in my garage with me, and remodeling my bike. And one thing he was also better at me at, right with me, I'm sorry, was bike maintenance. I stripped my bike down to the frame, and everything I touch is getting upgraded in his honor. I'm gonna make it short because I can talk endlessly about this man of badassery. And you know what else he knows? Is how valuable time was in the first place. And I wondered, how did this guy make cancer look so good on him? He didn't skip rides, he didn't skip work, he still hung up on me every time I called. Oh, hey, dude, listen to call, talk tomorrow. Because they knew it was important. He already had his system finely tuned. That's why cancer looked the same on him as like he was living like he was dying the whole damn time. So let that be a lesson to me. And I just want to close with me and Shorty's last words. It was ironically enough, Robert Dilser, myself, Matt Westmoreland, Shorty, and yeah, the end was not that great, but you know what? He was still in there, fighting like a son of bitches. Love that man. And I'm looking forward to this. Again, this might not be perfect, but I'll give a shit. It's factual. So, and the Bible's pretty risque too. I was going to say there's a lot of weird shit in there, murder, adultery. Anyways, so I go give him this hug. I lean forward and I kind of like pull him to me, and you can imagine that, you know, the posture. And he's like, "Oh man, I totally almost kissed you." And I started laughing at him, and I kind of knew it was going to be the last time I was ever going to see him. I kind of did in the back of my mind. In fact, I told Matt that day I said, dude, that's the last time I see him. Because I just seen him a week before, and I saw the progression. And I said, you know what? It's never too late to start something new. And he laughed at me. And that was it. So you know what? In his honor, and as everybody said, they have nicknames and listicles over there, right? And our family nickname was what is it? Harry Berries, that boy. The Harry Berries, perfectly G-rated, depending on the spelling, I think. So in honor of that man and my lack of skills of dirt bike maintenance and the fact I'm getting really good at it, I'm opening a business because I like writing off bike parts, because he did the Amazon thing and taught me about oil. Now I'm just gonna write everything off. So Harry Berry's Bike Shop, LLC, is opening in Gilbert in honor of your husband. And Aiden, let's do that top end, right?
Jason Williams.
Hello, everyone. Jason Williams here. Can't say much more than all these other guys. That was pretty good, but really hard for me to be up here. But I don't know a lot of you, Tracy, Jacob. Just remember John being man's man, sarcastic, funny, humorous, rambunctious, so fun to ride with. His family, I love riding with Aiden, and I just don't know what else to say besides I'm really gonna miss that guy and all the fun things that we got to do and dirt bike riding. And believe it or not, I was actually the one that got him off the quad onto the dirt bike. He thought he was gonna keep up with the dirt bike one day when we were camping, and it didn't happen. He crashed pretty hard, sold the quad the next day, and then progressed to be one of the best riders ever, kicking my ass all over the place, and just a great guy. But I miss John so much. Thank you, everybody.
Matt Lewis.
Thank you, Claire. For anyone that doesn't know me, Matt, or diabetic Matt. Met John back sometime during my sophomore year. We became friends. I believe it started off with the rides to lunch. Because anyone who's anyone had a ride to lunch during high school. And John was my ticket. You see, it's not just a ride. It's going shotgun to lunch with that guy. It was an experience. John had one of the coolest cars in Payson at the time. Folks, we're talking big block Ford, 36-inch glass backs that emptied out right before the rear tires. This car was loud. Had a presence. One day John said to me, "Hey, do you want to help me fix my exhaust?" And I thought, well, fix your exhaust? Okay, sure, I'm in. So next thing you know, we took off and we were driving down the street. We ended up going down the ride, all the way down. And still at this point, I wasn't quite sure what we were going to do to fix his exhaust. So we came back, turned around to ride, and he hit the hill wide open. He didn't let up until we crested the ridge into Oxbow. I glanced over looking for the speedo. It didn't exist anymore. We had to be north of somewhere of 120, and in a 5,300-pound car, that's pretty good. Up Rye Hill. When we made our way back to the house, John partially kind of slid sideways into the driveway, beeped out the driver's door, kind of Dukes of Hazzard style. Ran to the end of the garden hose while yelling at me, "Hurry up, turn the garden hose on, quick, hurry." Still not quite sure what was going on. I turned it on as he's shoving it in the tailpipe. And, well, it had hollow pipes after that, and it was louder. John's the only one I've ever known to actually build a hot rod Lincoln. John was genuine, honest, witty, most importantly, straight to the point. And I know there isn't anyone in this room that at one point was an offended, disturbed, or at least caught off guard. John was the king of the one-liners. One that stuck with me over the years. Kind of a silly one, you almost got to think about it, but he'd say something like, "Well, that's about as useful as screen doors on a submarine." I remember working with John back at Payson Ice and Tool, splitting and stacking cord after cord of wood, sometimes in the snow and the rain, or bagging and throwing, stacking hundreds of thousands of 7-pound bags of ice. Never complaining, never giving up. It was early in John's life that I could tell that John had a strong work ethic, a solid foundation that carried and propelled him to the top of every career he applied himself to. One of my favorite things about John was his thirst for knowledge and his passion to share it with you. Sometimes, whether you like it or whether you wanted it or not. Occasionally on those long rides, to go dirt bike riding like Payson or Prescott or something, I think of something ridiculous, some kind of off-the-wall topic, just to get him started on explaining something to me, just to talk about. And he had the ability to really break things down, tell you every little detail about things. And everything was correct. He had that uncanny knowledge of everything. Kind of like when he used to wear Wranglers and drink Coors Original. He could tell you every detail, like where the cotton was grown or where the hops were picked. It was that attention to detail that made him such a strong navigator in the backcountry. And I, for one, am guilty of being clueless as to our location on many rides, simply because we had John. I'm following that game. He was the talking map, but with even better commentary. John studied and knew something about everything. Back in about 2007, I noticed a change in John. It was around this time when his plate became full, but not full of partying and drinking and the other things that we used to do. It became full of life and purpose. And it was then John and Nicole transitioned from a loving couple and into a family. It was just with this family that John had his direction and his purpose. And it was to teach and to guide his son to be a man. And to love and provide for his family, no matter the circumstances. I've known John longer than I've known my own parents. And you truly were a special man. You were not just a friend, you were my brother. And I will never forget you, John. Thank you.
Now, I am not as tough as any of these guys that just spoke, so forgive me if I fall apart. John, over the 20 plus years of knowing you, you have gone by many names. John, the boy from Royal Rangers. I was a missionette. John, my friend from school. John, my best friend's boyfriend, fiance, to husband. John, to my brother-in-law. To my husband, his brother-in-law, his barbecue buddy. The countless days that they would talk about what spices to put on chicken, because they knew how to cook. Uncle to my daughter, Jalen. You taught Jalen, Uncle John, life lessons, dating advice, flipping off the camera at every family photo. To what I would say is her fondest memory, braiding your hair Viking style for chemo. Mr. John to our son Matthew, teaching him to ride his bike, defending him against a grown man trying to steal his stuffed kitten, to believing that only you could feed him mild jalapenos. For the last 10 years, we became gossip girls. Late night calls from you and Nicole to Ryan and I trying to figure out who got arrested in the Peace and Court report. Until they decided to come out with the Gila County app. Now we can see their mugshots. Reliving all of our Peace in Town stories our families knew at every function, they would find you and I in the corner giggling like girls. There are memories I will forever cherish. There were so many things I wanted to say, and many times I have picked up the phone to text you. I find peace, it may be the silly, that God is letting you sit on a couch with our dog Gunner in your sweater, holding our sweet little girl Portland, and that you are teaching her one day to ride a bike. And maybe she can braid your hair. At the end of your fight, you were lastly known as my best friend. I promise you that until my last days, I will be there for Nicole and Aiden. I will be her forever best friend. John, as I look at your family and friends today and see how many people love you, or know that we are family strong, we are monster strong, and our love for you will carry us on. I love you, best friend. If there's anybody else that would like to come up, short stories and memories, I'm just open.
So I'm Alex. I met Aiden, John, and Nicole when we first moved into our house when they were renting in the same neighborhood as us. And it's like John was like a magnet to motorcycles. As soon as my bikes rolled off my truck, he was at my garage door, introducing himself. Hey, I'm John, I'm a ham soil dealer. If you ever need anything, sure go out, let me know. I'm not looking. Oh, okay, cool, And he just kept coming by and we're talking and, we go riding and one time, and joke you not, whoever said that that guy was a badass, holy crap, man, you don't even know. So we go down to Moto Lane, and we took Aiden, myself, John, and my stepson, Nathaniel. We go down there to go ride. And he just rolls his bikes out back into the truck, right? Okay, cool, you know. Rolled them out, no big deal. Got my bikes out, we're riding down there for 2-3 hours, get ready to go. And load my bikes up, and I'm like, you don't have a ramp? I don't need one. I'm like, what? No. He had he had that CR 500. That's a big motorcycle, heavy motorcycle. I'm like, you want to borrow my ramp? No, I got it. Okay. I joke you not, this guy manhandled this motorcycle in the back of a pickup truck, and I ain't never seen nothing in my life like this. I'm like, you good? He's like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm like, back don't hurt? No, I'm good. I'm like, I've never seen that before, and that contests to how strong this man was. This guy was, I used to watch him at the end of our street in the park, flip one of those earth mover types. Yeah, this guy was something out of this world, and he really was a Mongolian monster. I mean, if you ever thought you saw one, that was him. He was something out of this world. And you're right, he had a lot of knowledge. And he even taught me stuff that I didn't. And I'm gonna leave on this because this was something funny that happened. So one time he got a brand new bike for his CR 500. Brand spanking new. He's so excited with this thing in the back. He's like, yeah, I gotta get this on. I got a race this weekend. Monday comes around. I come home from work. He's like, yeah, you think you can fix this for me? I joke you not. Brand new 500 pipe, pitched shut. I'm like, no, I don't think that's fixable. Because I used to fix his pipes. You freeze them, crack them, and I weld them up for him. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think that's fixable. So that's how hard this guy rode a motorcycle. You know, he'd tell me stories coming off a bike at 100 plus miles an hour and get up and get back on. And I'm like, man, you're crazy. But he was unique, and I'll never forget him. And again, he was just one cool dude. So thank you for letting me share.
Good afternoon, I'm Garrett Richmond, and I from the motorcycle community, and I work with John as an AMRA officer, and he was in our club as well. But first of all, I want to thank all the people from the Chase team. He loved his job, and what you guys did for him in his final year or two, whatever it was amazing. And I know he loved you guys and loved working with you guys. He told me many times, but what you guys did for him was, I don't know of any other company that would do something like that for their employees. It was amazing. And I don't know if the leadership is here or not, but you guys work for a great company. So. I guess, you know, I've been listening to everyone talk and thinking about what John meant to me or who he was or what he meant to the motorcycle community. And I think that one word is savage. That guy was savage about everything. I mean, he was beast mode. He was everything, passionate. I mean, we never had anyone in the racing community like him as a mini steward. I know Dan Powell and I talk about him regularly, about what he did. He was a great guy. Tracy Stanton, he loved that Sierra 500 group. He talked to me about it all the time. He loved it. I know he did. And he loved his Sierra 500. What he meant for our club was hard work, passionate. He was always there early, there to the end, helping us, and it was great having him there. To know Jon, he loved his cooking. He brought it to the camping trips with us. He was always leading. Can't even think of the word, but like he would cook meat for everyone, and everyone would, bring something along, and we missed that. We would do it all the time. It was great. Chicken, meat, whatever it was, he was great at it. He was a good friend, and I think about him constantly. And we miss him in our club. We miss him at the races. I know that parents miss him, and he was savage for sure. Thank you.
I didn't plan on getting up here, so I get a little nervous. Bear with me. A couple things is, I got to know Jon kind of in the mini world, like so many people here through dirt bike racing. I'd raise a little hell, he'd raise a little hell, and he'd have to call me and say, hey, I'm supposed to call you and, tell you not to do that, or, whatever I did. He and I would have a good time about that. It was kind of my favorite thing, getting a phone call from him to straighten me out, or he'd egg me on to kind of raise a little hell. So because he couldn't do it because he was the mini steward, and he called me and said it was a good plan, you did it right. It was incredible getting to know him. All the great things and all the words that have been used to describe him today are incredibly accurate. He was a great dude, incredible sense of humor. Like everyone has said here, one of my favorite conversations to have, and I miss those things. Until the end, when we would talk, he had a great sense of humor. He'd call me and say, hey, I don't want to talk about all this stuff going on with me. Let's talk about the kids. He's always so focused on Aiden. It was incredible. And as you know, I want to give ATR a lot of credit. It was kind of his last dying wish that we had a mini race. Don't make me cry. That we had a mini race at Camp Wood, and ATR pulled it off, and it was pretty great to be able to call it the mini monster bash race. Excuse me. We know it takes a village, and Aiden, we're here for you, bud. It's great that you're showing up to the races. One of the things, Jon was always like, hey man, you got to stay on Aiden. Make sure you're standing up. It's kind of one of those things where, he knew this village would come together for him. We could all raise Aiden together. He's not here, but he's here with all of us, but I promise you that. And so, at the last race in Prescott Valley, you hear me yelling at you, stand up! Aiden, come on, man. That's because I have to do that for your father. And anyway, thanks, y'all. Appreciate it.
At this time, we're gonna let everybody mingle, get some food, some drinks, hug each other, pictures, just gather and still talk about Jon.